So today, we will be talking about the truth about paying for senior living. So as I was preparing for this, it's inevitable, hopefully, right? Lord willing, it's inevitable. And we just like to know about what to expect coming down the road. So none of us enjoy the road work that happens continually on I-35, but we sure like to know about it beforehand and know if we ought to take a detour or maybe pay attention to those signs. That's what we're doing today. We are going to ask some really important questions. We're not going to get super in the weeds about how much senior living costs. It's a little bit of a different topic. We'll touch on it. But what we're really going to be talking about is some of the different ways that people pay for senior living and some questions to ask along the way. So I'm going to bring our panelists up. We have three panelists. I'm going to read their bios as they come up. So we've got Dan Yancey. Dan has been a licensed insurance agent since 1975, with decades of experience guiding families through retirement, income planning, VA benefits, and Medicaid strategies. His work, you can come on up, you're good. There's no pomp and circumstance here, we're friends. His work centers on helping clients protect their assets from market volatility, inflation, and rising costs of long-term care. Dan is known for his practical approach to navigating complex systems and his deep expertise in financial planning for aging adults. He currently leads Senior Financial Resources and works in partnership with Brookstone Capital Management. Here in the middle, that's my friend Dan. Mike, right to my left, is a senior living expert with Solutions Advisors. Mike Brindley brings over 30 years of senior living experience across operations, sales, and community development. He joined Solution Advisors in 2013 and has since helped life care and rental communities improve occupancy through strategic sales, coaching, and culture development. Mike's career includes regional leadership roles with Sunrise and Holiday, where he led training programs and oversaw large portfolios. Known for his people-first approach, that's what we love here, people-first approach, Mike believes in understanding each prospect's story and building strong values-driven teams that guide families through life transitions with care and confidence. And last but not least is my friend Kirk. Kirk is Kirk Schrader with Programs Manager, Medicaid Services Unit, Oklahoma Human Services. Kirk Schrader has served with Oklahoma Human Services since 2009, where he leads professional development within the Community Living, Aging, and Protective Services Medicaid Services Unit. And with a background in social work, case management, and safety leadership, Kirk brings a passion for empowering Oklahoma's aging and disabled adult population. He holds a degree from Missouri State University, and as a proud husband and father of four, Kirk is excited to share insights into the Advantage Medicaid Waiver Program and how it supports aging in place with dignity and care. So I'm so excited. Help me welcome our speaker today. Oh, thanks for being here, guys. It's a great group. Don't we have a great group? Oh, amazing.
We'll find out.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. I know them. Okay, so Mike, I'm going to start with you. We're going to kind of break this up into different things, and then we'll kind of do some Q&A at the end, if that's okay. So you work with a variety of senior living communities, life care, rental, assisted living, memory care, and more. What are the biggest differences families should understand, especially when comparing life care contracts to month options as far as payment goes?
Yeah, and good morning, everyone. Glad to be here. This is, I think, my third time being on the panel for different topics. So always glad to be back in Oklahoma. I live in Richmond, Virginia. So be nice to an East Coaster today, please. I think more than anything else, the easiest difference between a life care community or life plan community, or formerly known as CCRCs versus a rental, is really that. I mean, life plan communities, you're kind of prepaying or planning for your future. And in doing that, you are saying that, all right, if I choose this community, I can be here from independent living, assisted living, potentially cognitive decline, and then maybe skilled nursing. And then I'm prepaying some of that care ahead of time. So my monthly service fees won't change that much other than rate increases over the course of time. But whatever you start at independent living won't change that much when you go to skilled nursing. Rental communities is truly rental communities. You're renting on a month-to-month contract. And then maybe you're giving a 30-day notice if you move out. With a life care community, you're paying an upfront entrance fee, whether it's a high entrance fee with a lower monthly service fee or a lower entrance fee with a higher monthly service, so you get to kind of choose your contract. But then some of that money will go back to your estate after you pass. So life care, you're kind of prepaying and choosing your future, and a rental is you're choosing your monthly plan every month. Just know that with monthly communities or rental communities, we typically see a higher rate increase there versus a life care community annually.
Okay. So when families are evaluating senior living, what should they be paying attention to beyond just cost, especially when it comes to lifestyle values and the overall feel of the community? I think in terms of questions that people might ask when they're going on the tour, just to make sure that that's a financial decision that they want to make.
Yeah, I think number one, the most important thing for all of you is you have a great story to tell. You have lived a great life. You've raised your family, your children, and now I want the communities to spend time with you and get to know you. If you walk into a community and the dog and pony show starts right away, I would tell them to slow things down and let's learn about me, what I'm looking for and what's important to me, not just from amenities, but like who I am, my values. I think that matters so much. And I think communities sometimes feel like they have to tell you all about themselves. I want to know about you and who you are. So make sure communities spend time with you and get to know you. Second of all, I want to know about leadership. How long has leadership been in place? How important is leadership to you all? So if you have an issue, who can I go to? Who is that person beyond the salesperson that I can go to when things are maybe not ideal? And then I would ask to see, again, most communities you can see whether they've ever gotten in trouble with Department of Health and Human Services and what some of those things look like. You have every right to ask those things. One of the things I love telling people is, you only know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. Allow yourself to know what you know. And don't be afraid to ask questions. It is your right to know. So that's how I'd answer that.
Well, and let me ask you this. As far as fee increases, that's something that I would want to know. Are most communities pretty transparent with you regarding fee increases?
Yeah, well, they have to give you notice. Typically states are 30 or 60 days. And so you'll know within 30 or 60 days what that rate increase looks like. I think, listen, I always want to make sure I go back to what communities go through. COVID was hard on all of you all. It was hard on communities especially. And for a lot of communities, they didn't do rate increases during that pandemic because they wanted to make sure everybody was safe. That was the most important thing to them. Then coming out of it, the cost of taking care of these communities has skyrocketed. Just like living in your home has skyrocketed. The same thing for these communities. Labor costs have just skyrocketed, cost of food, cost of getting products in. So unfortunately, the only way to have that kind of taken off is how we pay for it. So I think that is probably going to steady here in the next couple of years, hopefully. The last 3 years have been very volatile because people are still trying to figure out how much everything costs. I think we're getting better at it now. So hopefully that will kind of hamper things a little bit. But it's been a little shaky the last 3 years for rate increases across the board for everybody.
Yeah, nobody enjoys that.
No.
So you've worked across the country, and this is when you and I were prepping for this panel, this was something that you mentioned, and I wanted to make sure that you told the group this as well. How does Oklahoma compare in terms of affordability and access, and how does that impact where people are moving from and how they plan financially?
Yeah, you're probably hearing a lot of different accents like mine over the last few years, maybe less traditional Oklahomans. What we've seen across the country is Oklahoma is a very affordable place to live. Now, you all are not going to win the day maybe in housing values like compared to New York and California and parts of the country like that, the Northeast corridor, but you're affordable, and your cost of living here in communities, senior living communities here, is much more affordable than we see in other states. So we are seeing quite a few people coming from the Northeast, from down in Florida, from the West, coming into Oklahoma and moving into communities in Oklahoma. One, maybe families here now, they've become transient, but the cost is just so much more affordable. So stay here, it's great. You don't need to go near your kids unless you really have to, but this is a great state to afford senior living for sure.
Well, we're big fans. I'm a lifelong Oklahoman here, and I'm a big fan of our state. So last question that I have particularly for you. So we know that sometimes the biggest barrier to making a move really isn't financial, it's emotional. So how can families shift their mindset from I can't afford this is this the right time to invest in a better quality of life? And tell me about planning early.
So can I ask my question that you said you were going to steal from me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many of you want your kids to pick your senior living community out for you?
It's weird.
Show of hands. Show of hands.
My parents are not raising their hands.
Yeah. Oh, they're here?
Yeah, they are.
Oh,
They do
good,
raise their hands.
Good. Do you want your daughter, where are they at?
Right over there.
Okay. Do you want your daughter to pick out your senior living community for you? No. Okay. I just want to make sure this is the right group I was at. So this is about what you all want. You get to drive this. This is your control. You get to choose where you want to go. Choose it because you want to do this, not because you feel like you have to do this. And let the emotional side of it, there's got to be a willingness to pay for senior living. And I know a lot of people think, well, I'm going to stay at home as long as possible, and then when I need this, I'm going to go. That's fine, but your options change if you wait too long. Then Becky does get to decide for you. So, yeah, you don't want that.
All of you, just two of you
Right.
in the room.
So, right, well, Becky's now your daughter, everybody. So it's got to be about what you all want. And so, like, the fact that you all are here every single month learning from the Institute here about, getting told the truth, like, that's really important. You're preparing yourself for this future, for the plan. Remember that every single time. Like, this is about what we want to do, and we're going to do it because it feels right. Most of the decisions you all will make will never be you'll never be at the community and say, I'm going to do this. You're a reflective group. You're going to look back on your life and go, have we lived a good life? Have we done the right things? Can we afford this? Do we want to pay for this? And then you'll decide, and then you'll know. And I'll just tell you that the communities I work with all across the country say, I wish I did this sooner, is because you're getting back some things maybe your house can't afford you all the time. And pick places that are going to give you like new things that you haven't had before, and new things to try. Because, dreams happen at 70, 80, and 90. Continue to live your dreams. Don't get old. Don't choose a community because it's a retirement community. Choose a place that you want to be at because they're going to give you what you need, and it can afford, not financially, but afford mentally, physically, spiritually, all those things.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Dan, I'm going to shift, and we're going to jump around just a little bit because, Dan, we're going to talk about VA aid and attendance, and then we'll hop to Kirk, and then we'll come back and talk about long-term care for just a minute, if that's okay, just to kind of break it up. So speaking about VA aid and attendance, what exactly is the aid and attendance benefit, and who truly qualifies? Basically, people who may not realize that they might be eligible.
Well, who is in this room, who are veterans who served? Quite a few of you. So thank you for your service. Surviving widows of veterans, any in the room? So this also applies to you as well. Thank you. The Veterans Aid and Attendance is available to a veteran as well as a spouse or widow or widower of a veteran who had wartime military service. So a crucial piece of evidence for the veteran or for the widow or widower is your DD-214, your discharge papers. And so specifically, the first qualification is that you had to have been on active duty during a time of war. And specifically, it is 90 days of active duty with at least 1 day occurring during a time of war. So this is going to apply to Korean War veterans. This is going to apply to Vietnam veterans, as well as our Gulf War veterans. And so that is the first piece of criteria in terms of qualifying for that. From there, then there are other components that are involved. And it follows along traditional long-term care insurance, how the VA approaches things. And that is that you become in need of assistance from another individual. And so it's based on what's known as an ADL, which is activities of daily living. And so these activities of daily living are the inability to feed, dress, continence, toileting, bathing, dressing, transference. And in essence, the VA looks at it in terms of once you fail 2 out of 6, then that serves as a trigger. Blind or nearly blind or cognitive impairment as well. Then from there, it becomes an income test and an asset test. For the veteran who is married, the benefit will pay as much as $2,700 a month to the veteran. This is a tax-free benefit. It's paid directly to the veteran, so it's not a vendor payment. It's not like Medicaid services where it'll go to the vendor. It's actually paid to you or whoever is helping taking care of you. So it'll be as much as $2,700 a month for a veteran who is single. Then it's as much as $2,300 a month. And for a spouse or widow or widower of a veteran, it's as much as $1,500 per month. Now, with that benefit, many times there's a certain amount of confusion in terms of, well, I make too much money. You know, we hear that a lot. And basically, it's a component of reducing your income, your irrevocable income. So this is going to be pension and Social Security by unreimbursed medical expenses as well as cost of care. So what is that? That's anything that you're paying in terms of your Medicare premium, your Medicare supplement, your prescriptions, your doctor copays, eyeglasses, these sort of things. But it also relates to cost of care. So if you're beginning to have home health coming in and you're paying for that or those services, as well as once you begin receiving assistance, if you move into a senior living community, all of these reduce your income. And so once your income goes inside of these particular limits, the $2,700 or the $2,300, then you become eligible for the benefit. So the first misconception that I hear from people is well, I just make too much money and I'm not even going to look at the benefit. And I would encourage you to look at those qualifications and talk to someone who is knowledgeable in this area. On the other side of the fence, what occurs is that then the VA looks at assets. And basically, your assets, in order to qualify for the benefit, excluding your home and personal possessions, is a limit of $160,000. Now, how the VA approaches this is that they have mirrored limits as far as assets are concerned, similar to Medicaid qualification. Up until about 4 or 5 years ago, there were no transfer rules on qualifying for the VA benefits. So literally, if you had $500,000, you could give it away, give it to your children, and go down the next day and qualify for veterans benefits. We never thought that that was a good solution, and obviously the people that we talked to didn't think it was a good solution. What it did lend itself to is specialized legal planning, asset protection, where you would remain in control of your assets but still be able to qualify for benefits. For years, Medicaid has had look-back provision on gifts and transfer of assets, and I'm sure Bert will talk more about that in his presentation. But Medicaid's had a 5-year look-back period for many, many years. And so the VA began to look at this, and about 4 or 5 years ago, they adopted a 3-year look-back provision on gifts and transfer of assets. The difference with the Medicaid benefits is really what I would just call, if you're a veteran or a surviving spouse of a veteran, it's really what I call just getting ready to get ready. Because with the VA, the transfer rules are really draconian in nature. And that is, you better do your planning well in advance. Because if you try to transfer any assets at all, if you do any legal planning in order to protect those assets, they have to be in place 3 years prior to the need for service. So I'll get telephone calls from families in terms of, well, you know, we're in assisted living, you know, it's costing us $4,000 or $5,000 a month. And, you know, Dad was in the military and we've heard about this benefit and, you know, we want to sign up for it. Well, what have you done in terms of planning? And there has been no planning as far as asset protection is concerned. So really, it's a matter of getting your ducks in a row and just getting ready to get ready. So that's basically it in a nutshell.
So are there any major differences between the VA look back and the Medicaid look back that someone needs to be aware of?
Well, the major differences is that Congress enacted provisions back in 2006, which addressed Medicaid and would allow elder law attorneys to do planning in order to qualify. With the Medicaid benefit and the 5-year look-back provision, it's basically a scope rule. And that is, it just allows the agencies, DHS, to look at gifts and transfer of assets that have occurred over the last 5 years. A lot of them may be legitimate and, just qualify for Medicaid. Whereas with the VA, if you've transferred an asset, you got to wait. It's 3 years. That's it. Over and done.
Okay. Okay, so one of the questions that we get a lot that I don't know that we're always the most equipped to answer is, and I would reach out to you about this, is who does someone need to call and talk to? So they've decided, or their family has decided, that they need to go ahead and start this process. Who do they call?
Well, there's veteran service officers. You can get them through the VA. There's the disabled veterans. There are qualified elder law attorneys. I've worked with them for many, many years. We offer free consultations. I have people that will contact me and they want to learn more about just qualifying for the benefit. And so many times we'll have interviews because I've been personally involved in them, and people will just come in and, this is our situation. What do you think? And what should we do in order to plan for this event? And when you're dealing with someone who's qualified in that area, whether it's your family attorney, or you're dealing with the VA, or you're dealing with someone like me, it's just a matter of really getting an understanding, asking those questions, as Mike was talking about, in terms of how it applies to you. If it's important to have a son or a daughter, and we always recommend that in terms of family members, set up your VA file. Get things in order, get your DD-214, a listing of assets, your income, and have that in file so that if or when that event finally occurs, you're ready to go.
Thank you. And we'll come back to you in just a minute to talk about long-term care, but I want to switch gears real quick and talk to Kirk. So talk to me about the main programs, Kirk, that are available through DHS for seniors who are low income. So who qualifies?
I always kind of faunch a little bit at that question because low income is kind of a perception,
Okay.
first of all. And second of all, it becomes kind of a roadblock to folks that are eligible for benefits and think, well, I'm not low income, so I don't qualify. And that may not necessarily be the case. The benefits that we offer through our community living, aging, and protective services division are really for people who have a need that can't be met anywhere else. And it is our eligibility folks, it's their responsibility then to figure out how to help people qualify for those services that they need. Sorry. I usually don't use a mic at all because I talk loud, and now I have one and I'm trying not to talk too loud.
And it's so important because we've got lots of friends
Yeah.
that you have important things to say that they need to hear. So, so talk to me just a minute about the Advantage waiver, about what it covers, who it's for,
Sure.
and how it's different from like nursing home.
Absolutely. So in 1993, there was a lot of stuff happening in Oklahoma around services for individuals who had a demonstrated need, who had a need for assistance with their ADLs and IDLs. And initially, that started with a class action lawsuit, actually, in Tulsa with a facility called HISA Memorial Center. And you may have read about it in the news, heard about it on the news, but it basically transitioned, the class action transitioned individuals with developmental disabilities out of the facility and out into community-based homes so that people could experience a lifestyle and a quality of life that was much like what you and I choose to live every day. On on the heels of that, there was a recognition by one of the folks that was involved in that lawsuit supporting Oklahoma residents that realized there's another population of people in the state of Oklahoma that are really underserved, and that is our aging and disabled adult population. The folks that don't necessarily have a developmental disability or cognitive impairment, but they're being forced essentially to take up residence in nursing facility care because they've reached a point in their health conditions that they need that kind of care and supervision. And we really didn't allow for a choice in between. If you couldn't private pay for services in your home, and I don't know if any of you are doing that, but if you are, you know it's very expensive to private pay for services in your home. If you couldn't afford that, then your option to get those services was to go into a nursing facility that accepted Medicaid reimbursement to receive your care. So as I said, in 1993, or 1996 rather, we were accepted by the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services to begin a pilot program, and our legislature agreed to fund a pilot program in Tulsa County called the Advantage Medicaid Waiver Program. And what it essentially does is it takes Medicaid funds, accepts Medicaid funds, and spends them in a way that is not traditional to Medicaid, because Medicaid will pay for you to receive care in a nursing facility, but traditional Medicaid will not pay for you to receive care in your home. And so the Advantage Medicaid Waiver, in turn, takes those Medicaid funds and waives the rules, the traditional rules of Medicaid, to allow for those services to be provided to individuals to stay in their home, receive the care they would otherwise get in a nursing facility, but be able to remain in their home. And really our three criteria is healthy, safe, and I think most important, independently. So in a place where you get to continue to choose how you want to live your life, what your quality of life is, you're able to define that for yourself. You're able to give direction about your care and how you want to be cared for by the caregivers that come into your home to provide services. With Advantage, you will have two services. Every member on Advantage has two services automatically. One of them is case management. In my mind, probably the single most important service we offer through the program, because that case manager is a community-based business that does case management, knows what's available in the community, knows fellas like this to get you connected with when you have questions, but knows also what resources are available to you in your community to get you connected to, and how to remove the barriers to accessing those benefits, including things like VA benefits, Indian Health Services, benefits that maybe you should be getting from your Medicare provider, but you're not maybe getting, and maybe didn't know that you should have been getting them. So the case manager really becomes an advocate to come and walk alongside you to give you information that maybe you didn't have access to before, and then to encourage you and empower you to make the decisions that you want to make for how you receive those services based on that information. The other service that every Advantage member has is a independent community-based home care provider. So this would be nursing, personal care, assistance with transferring, assistance with bathing, assistance with preparing meals and doing laundry, based on the individual member's needs. And then there's a plethora of other services that are available through the Advantage waiver also that really are intended to support an individual. Now, I will mention Advantage is not a wraparound service, so Advantage doesn't come into your life, take over your life, and provide everything. What Advantage is intended to do is supplement what you already have in place. In other words, we don't want to replace your daughter, your son, your niece, your nephew that maybe is coming into the home and supporting you. We want them to continue to do that. And in fact, we're going to encourage them to continue to do that. But what it does then is it fills those cracks of things that maybe you're not able to do for yourself and your family is not able to do, that we can help pay for to provide those services.
Okay, so this is the Truth series, and I know that everyone here has probably heard maybe a less than optimal story about trying to get in contact with the state. So I want to have a really clear and honest conversation real quick about just addressing some of those stories about maybe having trouble getting a hold of someone, some improvements that you guys have made, but let's, shed some light on that, please.
Well, and I will be first to admit, those of us that work at the state sometimes are a little slow. I'll just tell you, we're not the fastest car on the track sometimes. But we did figure out this is a problem. It's a problem when people are making an application, they're having to drive into a DHS office first of all. They're having to fill out an application, they submit all that, they get all their background paperwork to support all of that, and then they're waiting 60 to 90 days in some cases to get an answer about whether they're even eligible, let alone services started. Maybe you've done, in the meantime, the DHS nurse who was charged with determining medical eligibility has called, you weren't there, or you didn't recognize the number, you let it go to voicemail, you tried to call them back, they're busy, you can't get a hold of them, you leave a message, now they call back, but of course they wait until you've just stepped out the door to go to town to get your groceries, right? So playing that whole phone tag thing. So two things that COVID was a horrible, awful thing, but there were some really good things that came out of it, I think. And one of those is that the realization we needed a better way to engage with our community and to serve our members. And so one of the things that happened is we went online with an application process. So it's an initial application that you could go on our website, and we've got information in our brochures at the back of the room that you're welcome to about how to go online and make an application online. That's really the start of the process. What happens once you submit that application is you get an immediate confirmation email, assuming you've given it a working email. You get an immediate confirmation that tells you, please allow 2 days for your case to be assigned, and then call this number. And I can't tell you that I've memorized the call tree, but it'll even tell you push 8, push 4, push 3. Now you're going to actually get to talk to a live person. And what that does is it allows the member to call when they have time to answer questions and finish the application process. It also allows for the removal of that phone tagging back and forth. And with our new phone line system that was implemented, there's supervisors that are watching how long people are spending on calls, how long a call is ringing in before it's picked up, how long they are on hold. All of that is now being monitored, and folks are being measured on their work performance to make sure that services are getting to members timely. What that means. So, okay, yeah, that all sounds wonderful. Thank you for that truth. Now, what does that really mean? Well, what that really means is that we've gone from 60 to 90 days of getting through the application process and eligibility determination down to about a week to a week and a half. That from the time a person, if you will make that application online, and even if you don't, if you call our 800 number and make an application over the phone, our staff that are taking that pre-application are doing it online anyway. So it takes it down to from the time you have submitted that application, you've called back in, finished that application, eligibility gets determined, and you are being contacted by your community-based independent case management provider is now a week and a half to 2 weeks.
So maybe not the most fun process that anyone has ever undergone, but definitely making improvements, right?
Well, and I love talking to people, so it's always fun for me. But one of the things that we with the administration would really encourage you to do is get connected with one of our community-based case management providers. They're all independent providers. None of them work directly for the state. They contract to provide Advantage services. But I would and we can help you figure out who you might want to connect with. We can give you a list of who they are, but we would want to get you connected with them because they're going to come walk alongside you in this initial process and maybe make it a little more fun, or at least a little less unfun to go through that process, because they're going to help you figure out, they already know the process. And it's, you know, when we talk VA, 90% of the battle with any VA benefit is knowing the right person that knows how to navigate the system, right? So.
Well, and we could have an entire seminar on spend down rules and things like that. So I don't want to get too far in the weeds, but just like from a bird's eye view, tell me what's the most common misconception that you have run into, and maybe put some minds at ease.
So traditional Medicaid income eligibility is a maximum income of around $1,800 to $2,000. And I will tell you right now, I don't know the exact numbers. You would have to call one of our eligibility specialists to get them. I don't try to track them because frankly, it doesn't matter to me. In my mind, regardless of what you make, if you have a need and we can help you get that need met, and we're the only source to do that, we need to figure out how to help you become eligible. But just to answer the question more directly, so typical Medicaid eligibility is around $1,800, and they are going to look at the home. They're going to look at all the assets, the home, the car, the oil and mineral rights, the spouse's income. They're going to look at all that for traditional Medicaid. With the Advantage Medicaid waiver, because we're a little different, the eligibility limit is closer to $2,400 a month, and the eligibility specialist is only going to look at the income of the person applying. So they're not going to look at anybody else's income in the home, except for if you're both receiving income and that income is going into a joint banking account, then they're going to look at that joint banking account as an asset, and they're going to divide the total in that account by 2, so that they're still only looking at half of it. With Advantage, it's a home and community-based services program, so you have to have a home to live in. Therefore, your home does not get viewed as an asset. You are allowed to have a vehicle because it's recognized you're still going to need to be able to get around, and you may need a vehicle to do that. If your home sits on a city lot, or it sits on an acre, or it sits on a 500-acre farm, that is yours. That is not viewed as an asset. Now, if you own land that's across the highway and up the road a piece, that land may get looked at as an asset unless it sits across certain named state highways. So in statutes, they even go, do you understand why I don't want to get into the eligibility part?
We can definitely
right?
get in the weeds. No, I appreciate that. And we'll have lots of questions about that afterwards too, I think. Dan, I'm going to hop back to you, and we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about long-term care, because if you don't already have it, it's probably that ship may have sailed. So, but I do want to address long-term care insurance because a lot of people do have it. What are some key questions to ask the provider, especially if you're trying to understand a policy that you've had for a long, long time and it's been a long time since you've looked at it?
Well, it really deals with state highways.
Oh, we're telling jokes now. I love it. I'll have to think of one.
So, with traditional long-term care insurance, it's been in effect. The company started marketing it probably about 35 years ago, and some of you may have some of those contracts. And so, beginning with long-term care insurance many, many years ago, premiums were relatively low. And they would provide for a period of time as far as the payment of those benefits. And there are some policies that are still in existence out there that they pay for your entire life. And that has changed over time. There's fewer and fewer companies that are offering long-term care insurance. And as a result of that, the benefits have become more limited. Many of you who have traditional long-term care insurance are seeing rate increases. They're filed generally each year with our state insurance commissioner, and we see rate increases of anywhere from from 15 to 25% a year. The insurance companies, and one of the things that we get questions on when we're talking to people about benefits is that on the renewal periods, the insurance companies are coming in and they're providing benefits, but they're also offering to reduce premiums or keep premiums the same, but they're reducing benefits in conjunction with those policies. And so, I always encourage people to, if they have an insurance agent, a trusted advisor, talk to them in terms of, does the means justify the end? It's really important, just as you would with any financial plan, to, talk to your insurance provider on an annual basis to see if the means justifies the end. Because we'll have people that have come in, they're 80, 85 years old, and they have steadily reduced benefits trying to keep their premium the same, and it finally just becomes diminishing returns.
So we talked when we were prepping for this session, you talked about the fact that they kick in with ADLs and things like that. So I want you to touch on that, and then I also want you to briefly touch on asset-based long-term care.
Well, with traditional long-term care, and one thing I failed to mention when I was sitting up here, and I've got this flyer in my hand. Those of you who are interested in VA benefits, I've left flyers back here on the back table, which outline a lot of the benefits and the eligibility from the VA aid and attendance benefit. With traditional long-term care insurance, you have to qualify. And it's based, again, on activities of daily living. We talked about that earlier as far as qualifying for the Veterans Aid and Attendance benefit. So we'll have people that will qualify and they'll receive home health so they can be at home and have their long-term care insurance trigger. They may be in independent living, they may be in assisted living, and of course nursing home. But it is based on failures of activities of daily living, and that is failing 2 out of 6. And so I'll have contact with people that, or families that will go into assisted living as an example, but basically it's just, they're taking care of meals and it's medication organization. That's not a failure of activity of daily living. And I'll get people that are just madder than hops that, I've paid for this thing for all these years and it's not paying for my long-term care. Well, it's not fitting the definition of activities of daily living. Then transitioning, long-term care, purchasing it at advanced ages, it becomes problematic in terms of affordability of premiums. But additionally, you have to qualify for it medically. And as we age, we're wearing out before they carry us out anymore. And it just, we're just not going to qualify for it. We finally reached that point. So what do? Well, there's programs that are available. You may already have some where insurance products can help you, and it's called asset-based long-term care. And it can be done through your life insurance policies. It can also be done with properly structured annuities. Many times we'll talk to people and, well, I've got $200,000 sitting in my bank account, and that's my long-term plan. If we get into it, then that's what we're going to use. But, you get into a full-blown nursing home running anywhere from $6,000 to $9,000 a month, that $200,000 is going to go like the wind. So there are investments that people can make through their financial advisors where they can invest that money. It's there, it's growing, it's doing exactly what they want it to do, returns, everything that is involved. And it's our plan that, when we're done, we're going to pass this on to our family. And so it will do exactly that. But if they get into deep water and they need long-term care, that $200,000 has a multiplying effect because now it's at need. And so then that $200,000 becomes $400,000, $600,000 of services. And it's called asset-based long-term care. Some of you may have life insurance contracts that have what's called a living needs benefit, which provides for an acceleration of the life insurance benefits in the event that you need long-term care or terminal illness. Well, I've got to die in order for my family to get these items, but it may help you while you're alive in a time of critical need.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to kind of switch to more of a traditional way of, so we're going to hop down the line for some of these follow-up questions for the rest of our time. What is one piece of advice that you wish more families knew earlier when it comes to planning and paying for senior living? Mike, I'll start with you.
Oh,
And we'll give the rest of them
what?
plenty of time to think.
Yeah, sure. Right, thanks.
Yeah. Hot seat.
I guess I go back to where I talked about earlier is doing the planning now. I mean, researching, looking at even Google reviews, educating yourselves on what these communities offer, and really kind of narrow down who you want to see. Like, if you're gonna go look at like 10 different places, you're not gonna remember 7 of them afterwards because they're all gonna run together. So really kind of narrow down to where you think you need to be and want to be, either location or which amenities you're looking for, lifestyle, and then drill down on those 2 or 3 and really spend your time with those communities until you're ready to make that decision.
And there was one thing that we meant to talk about that we didn't, so you guys get bonus time to think about your answer. But I did want to ask you, as people are starting that journey, there's a company that pays for a lot of Google, pays for a lot of ads on Google, and we encourage people to do Google searches for senior communities and things like that. But there's probably there's more than one, but there's one that comes to mind that maybe captures a lot of information and gets in the way of seniors making. So I'm going to let you speak to that.
Yeah, Joan London, if you're looking for a clue, she was like their spokesperson for a long time. Oh. So you have to understand a lot of these national companies that do placement for communities, they gobble up what's called search engine optimization. Way too technical of a term for today, but those are keywords that you all search when it comes to senior living. So senior living communities, Oklahoma City, senior living communities, Edmond, retirement communities, that company will always pop up first on your website browser because that's what they pay for. So just know that when you click on that and sign up for them, they're only going to associate you with companies they have contracts with. So you really don't get to choose where you get to look. They send your information out to those communities. So if you're looking for my advice, no offense, but that's why I'm here, go down on your search engine and find the places that you want to go look at.
Have you found that the first, I think all of us in the room have learned by error that usually the top one on the Google search is probably not the one that you want. That's the person who's paying the most money to be there.
Someone's paying money for there, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Good, okay. All right, thank you for that. All right, Dan.
I think it goes back to what Mike said early on in his presentation, and that is you just don't know what you don't know. Again, we've been helping people for probably 20 or 25 years in terms of benefit planning in conjunction to just doing traditional financial advising. And people will come in and they'll have questions about Medicaid and eligibility, and we're going through everything and what can be done, or veterans benefits. And always it is, I wish there was just more information out there. I wish that we had done something, years ago in order to plan for this. So I encourage people, talk with your family attorney, talk to your tax preparer, your accountant. If you have a financial advisor, talk to your financial advisor, because typically these people know who to refer you to. And that's exactly what we do as well. Just have those conversations. Don't be timid about it. Bring in your children, because at some point they're going to be involved in that process. And so many times we'll have people that will come in and they should have done something, and now we're dealing with the adult children. And they don't know, come here from Sikkim, as far as your assets are concerned. What are we going to do? We don't have the files. It's strewn all over the house. And we're in trouble here, folks. And so, help your children as well. Get them involved in the conversation when you feel it's appropriate.
So I'm going to start by bragging on my dad. He grew up an Iowa farm kid, and he amassed in his lifetime a 6th grade, he says 6th grade education. I saw the one-room schoolhouse. I'm not sure it was a true 6th grade education. Worked all his life in blue collar. My mom worked in banking all her life. And my dad had the foresight, or the good fortune, or both, to look into long-term care. And they started investing in their middle age when my brother and I were still fairly young. And then they also, as they started to reach that older age, my brother and I were both grown, decided to go and do a Medicaid income pension trust, or sorry, a MAP trust, a Medicaid Asset Protection Trust. And two of the best things they could have ever decided to do. And maybe more importantly than what they did to protect themselves. By the way, my father had to, we ran out of choices and had to put him in, I say put him, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, please don't say put
I
it.
don't want to say it that way, but the truth is he was not wanting to go. We had to get him into an assisted living in 2019 because he was diagnosed end stages dementia. And my brother and I were both still working with our family still, and it was the only way to get my mom really to move to where we were at so that we could take care of her too and have him close where we could help take care of him. He died in March of 2020, and I don't know if anybody remembers anything else going on in March of 2020. That was a fun time, wasn't it? So basically in doing that, my father expressed to my brother and I no greater love because we were able to navigate through trying to do a funeral, trying to take care of my mom, trying to do all of it through COVID. They had done a prepaid burial. The whole thing was paid for. My mom and dad took care of that. The home was now protected. It paid for my father's year in assisted living, pretty much entirely. And I will still say that the greater thing that the two of them did than taking care of themselves and preparing so my brother and I didn't have to do all that, my brother and I would not have planned well for the funeral. We would have probably disowned one another by the time it was all over. My parents took care of all that. The greatest thing they did out of all of that is they taught the lesson to my wife and I, to my brother and his wife. And we are now teaching it to our kids, is it's never too early to start thinking about it. It's never too early to start finding people who know to talk to, get the information. The other thing I've learned is it's never too late. You may think, well, I'm past that age, I'm past that point. You're not past the point of having the conversation, and in the course of having the conversation, then you start to find out about the other things that are available. And I'll just mention again, things like one of the best kept secrets in the state of Oklahoma is the Advantage Medicaid waiver program that I work for. Not intentionally, it's just that it's really hard to get word out to people about things that are there to help them take care of themselves. And when I say it's never too late, you start finding out the more you talk to people, whether it's your banker, your insurance agent, your investment banker, your attorney. These are important relationships and important information out there to go get. And if you have kids, in going through that process, drag them through it with you. They're going to think you're dragging them through it, because I did not want to talk about any of this stuff.
So you're moving in on my next question?
Sorry. So, which is a segue to the next question.
Thank you, Kirk. So Mike, in your experience, what separates the families who make this transition smoothly from those who really struggle? I think I know the answer to this, and probably most of us in the room do as well, but I'd like to hear you say it again. So.
Yeah, do y'all know who Nikki Bucklew is? She did a lot of true series on when's the right time to move and downsizing, things like that. I think the hard thing is for you all is you have a lot of stuff. You've acquired a lot of stuff over the years. And so there's a paralysis, like a decision can be paralysis by doing nothing. So don't do nothing, do something, right? And so again, and when you start involving your kids, they don't want their trophies that they won in swimming back when they were 9 years old, speaking about myself and my mom trying to give them to me. My kids definitely don't want to see my trophies of me when I was 9 years old and I swam. So have a plan together. You all control this. You're in charge of this. This is your journey, your next chapter. Involve your children from a standpoint of letting them be a part of it. And if you're an adult child here in the room, let your parents drive this process until they physically can't. Let them be a part of this. Like, nothing is, the worst thing you can do as a son or daughter is when you visit a community and you start placing furniture for your mom or dad, and we were just looking. I heard an amen. That's good. Don't do that. If we're just looking, we're just looking. Start placing furniture to an older adult who says, I'm not ready to do this yet, will change their body language and how they talk to their child afterwards. And I always remember this. My mom is still my mom, and she'll always be my mom. And so she still has control. And how I deal with her now in her late 70s, even my dad before he passed, was talking to them where they had control, not telling them what to do.
Perfect. Dan, in your experience, what separates the families from doing things successfully and not?
Well, again, it's a lot of the communication that goes on. We'll have parents that just balk. We don't want to talk about it. When you gave my introduction, you talked about all of my years in the life insurance business, and in June it'll be 50 years. And always in my experience, when I was dealing with life insurance, we don't want to talk about it because we might die. Well, I experience the same thing when people are talking about, transitioning in life, and that is, well, we don't want to talk about, needing these services because we might need them.
Oh, I know. Y'all have to stay. They're changing classes, but you're not. So
You're adjourned, and it's really been wonderful being with you. And the other thing, going back to what Mike was saying, and we in the first third of our life, we want everything, and then the next third of our life we have everything, and we spend the last third of our life getting rid of everything. But it's just involve the family unit. In my conference room, I've had as many as 12 people in there talking and trying to work through these issues. But it's just finally getting to the point where everybody's aware and they're developing a plan, just a plan.
yeah, I was speaking at a claim a few weeks ago, and we were just having a conversation, and I said, I haven't been able to find the trophy for doing this all by yourself. It's just I haven't been able to find it. But I have seen so many benefits from people who tap into their community and their family and have lots of conversations and find out all of their options, which, I understand that we're preaching to the choir here because that's why you're here. But you need to tell your friends, because you've got friends who think that they need to do it by themselves, like there's some trophy at the end. And there's just not. We do it together. Oklahoma City is a fantastic place to live. And we have a lot of great resources, so don't leave them on the table. All right, Kirk, do you have anything to add to that? What you see people holding them back and what creates struggles?
I think it's really what's been said are all things that I would have definitely picked from. I think that, again, I'll go back to the example that my parents have set for my wife and I and my brother and his wife. My brother and I actually get along better now because of having gone through an experience that neither one of us wanted to go through or talk about. And we were able to go through it in a planned, organized, prepared way, thanks to my parents. Had we not had that, one of us would likely be in McAllister and the other one, because it just would have come to that. I think probably the key is you're never too old, it's never too late to look at your options, and know that you're in charge of your life, and no matter what anybody else says, maintain that and make sure your kids are prepared to support you and to empower you to continue to be in charge of your own life, to make your own decisions for yourself, because they'll want that someday for themselves.
That's a great example. Okay, rapid round, and then we're going to do Q&A, okay? So I'll start with you, Kurt, because yeah.
Stanford.
No. We love your answers. Okay, so what do you wish people would ask but they don't? What's a question that you wish people would ask but they don't?
How do I find out? Who do I talk to?
Okay.
And I'll go back to the Advantage thing. The state, we have a lot of programs with the state, Advantage being one of them. A lot of people don't ask about it because they don't think they'll qualify. You don't know that until you apply. And you may, and the worst answer you can get about applying for a program like Advantage is no. Well, guess what? You got no already, but at least now you know.
Yep.
No?
All right, and Mike, I'm giving you extra time, so your answer is good. So Dan, it's your turn next.
I think really it comes again when you're dealing with assets, and people will have trust, they'll have wills, and they just think that everything is set up and they're ready to go, and when they pass away, everything's going to be just fine. And the problem is that you still have a lot of living ahead of you, and people just don't know. And we try to have those interviews and talk to people and try to pull those questions out of them.
What's a question that people need to ask?
I just think I go back to the same thing I've repeated over and over again, which is I want them to know who you are. Make sure they know who you are as a couple, who you are as an individual, all those things. That matters.
Okay. All right. So we're going to do some Q&A. Who are my mic runners? Danielle, Corey, and their mic runner. Shelly's going to do it. Perfect. Okay. So questions. I'm going to steal your mic. And you guys are going to have to share. There you go. Y'all are sharing. Okay. We're all friends here.
Okay. I have 6 caregiver support groups for the Alzheimer's Association. I have nightmares with this subject, and I'm so glad that you guys are up there talking about it. And I'll tell you what, they ask the same questions that you would think, what am I going to do? There's only about 10% that can really afford, through long-term care or through their personal wealth, to go into a home. I mean, they've got to go some other way. And I'll tell you what, there's more than once in these groups that I just go out and sit in my car and cry. And it's not due to the 13 years that I went through this with my wife. It's what they're going through to try to find out how they're going to make this work. I need information that I can give to them, because this comes up every single meeting is, what can I do? They're just so frustrated and at the end of their rope.
So the question is what information you can give to them. I would say invite them to Senior Living Truth Series, for one, to talk to some of our education partners in the back. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
I just want to say you've always been one of the best role models in this city when it comes to older adults and aging. I've been blessed to watch you present, and I saw you in the audience today, and it made my heart feel better. So I'm so glad that you're here. You are a role model as a husband, as an older adult, as a human being. So thank you for being here. It means a lot to me to see you again. I was going to shake your hand later. Now I can do it. Let me give you a hug. Arm yourself. Just arm yourself to be ready. If you wait too long, you won't have the information you need. The good news is, you all, if you're silent generation or boomers, the digital world is your oyster. It's all out there. You can grab it, go to it, educate yourself.
Also,
Sure.
real quick,
Sure.
I would encourage, if you've not, and again, it's one of those best kept secrets, but in the state of Oklahoma, we have 10 area agencies on aging. We call them AAAs. They each serve a cluster of counties. Every county in Oklahoma is served by one of those AAAs. We also have 5 centers for independent living, and those agencies receive grant funding as part of their funding to provide information and access to resources. I would definitely tap into that, and then I would tap into some of these agency provider groups that we work with, because they do a lot of different things and can get people connected to resources and information.
Perfect. Danielle, what do you have?
Yes, I grew up in Oklahoma, but I moved back here 5 years ago. after having retired to Puerto Vallarta with my husband, and he died a year and a half after that. So I moved here 5 years ago, and I started looking for an independent living facility that I could buy. And the state where I lived most of my life had a lot of condo facilities where you could buy a condo in a senior living facility. I'm not finding any condos that you can buy here. What I'm finding here is that you can rent places for $6,000, 650 square feet, and that doesn't include all the fees. And so I bought a house, and I'm living in the house until I can find something I like, and I'm just not finding a condo I can buy.
So the question is, are there condos? Yes, there are some. So let's talk about that afterwards. You can grab me or someone at my table, but yes, we do have condos in Oklahoma City. I just had dinner at a beautiful condo with some friends the other night. So we do have those. Any other questions? Did they do that good? Oh, we got another.
Okay, I'm not sure how easy it might be for you to answer this, but my question has to do with basically the fear that you have described some wonderful programs, but as we are experiencing cuts in personnel in many of the agencies and cuts in funding, we are talking about what is available in place now. But what about if the personnel on many of this, like say the veterans, say that it should happen that a lot of the workforce is dismissed, and there's maybe the programs haven't changed, but who implements the programs and answers the question is no longer there. So I feel a lot of uncertainty because a lot of the planning based on what exists today may be gone tomorrow. So how do you fund how you make the planning for the future when there's so much uncertainty?
That's such a big question, and we are getting that question a lot, right? Are these programs going to be gone? Do you guys, who wants to take that exciting question? Yeah, Mike, we'll sit it out. Okay.
The microphone got handed to the end of the row real quick. And somebody was dumb enough to receive it, you know? It's not an easy question to answer, and the answer is we don't know. I mean, no, I don't think anybody knows. But also challenge you to look back at your parents' generation and their parents' generation. There was a lot of things going on then, and they didn't know, and you plan, you gather as much information as you can gather. You find out as many different resources as you can find. You put together a plan. Everything we do it with a plan B and a plan C. We call it backup planning. So I not only encourage you to plan, but have a backup plan.
Yeah.
And then know too that sometimes those may fail. I have yet to seen a situation where things completely fail. And we are going through a cycle. We see this cycle pretty frequently. I mean, every 10 years we kind of roll through, or every generation, it seems like we kind of roll through this cycle. It's scary for us right now because we're at an age where it's affecting us.
I might say also that to keep in mind that news stories sell, right? Like they're in the news is so maybe temper some things, just pay attention, do some research, ask some questions, and that might just be my 2 cents. Danielle?
I think Kurt mentioned an 800 number. Do you know that 800 number we can
Good
call?
question.
I should. Can I temper that with, I turned 60 this year. We have brochures on the back table that I think we have actually made them pretty simple to read through and follow, and it does have the 800 number in there. It also has a step-by-step for how to do the online. So we can get that for you, and I've got some of my team folks here with me that'll that'll help you with that as well.
And
Yeah, I actually have one in my pocket. I just didn't want to pull it out because it's really wrinkled now. But. So on the table back there, we do have, and one of the things I wanted to throw in there is we also have, with the Advantage program, we contract currently with 34 assisted livings across the state to provide assisted living to our Advantage members. The member is responsible for their room and board, and then the Advantage program will kick in and pay for all of the home care services assistance with ADLs and IADLs. So I didn't mention that earlier, but that's another service option with our program.
Perfect. Thank you, Kirk. Danielle, yep.
She had a second part of that.
Okay, perfect.
I noticed one website on the back of the paper you gave us. Are there other websites that we would be helped by, especially that you all know of?
So Jalen, where is Jalen? There he is. The gentleman in the back of the room that's at our table, he just raised his hand up. I definitely would encourage you to get with Jalen. He is with our community outreach and community engagement. And then we have, so DHS has one big web page or big website, and then each of the programs has a website that kind of moves off of that web page. And we give you the individual links in these brochures because the website's not always easy to navigate. I know that's hard to believe, right? So we try to get you directly to the link, but we can definitely help you with that if you want to connect with us.
All right, Corey, last question.
I have been so impressed with all of the panel members and what I have learned from those who attend. Take away the fear and cause me to start with the you need to do. And what I'm going to do, my family reunion is coming up in August. We have members from even out of the country, and I am going to make an announcement that we have a section devoted to our older members because they can no longer carry the torch. My other question is, I have children in several different states, and I always worry about what state controls what I do for them or what problem I could encounter with a child that lives in a different state. Do I need to be concerned about that?
That may be a very specific question, so come get us afterwards, okay? As far as the different states. Thank you, Miss Betty. I appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to let my friends go sit down, and I appreciate them. Help me appreciate them, please. Thank you.